Welcome to the Bright Ideas Podcast.
So your book is called The $500 Startup on Amazon, How a Dad of Three Launched a Business on Amazon and Escaped the Hamster Wheel of 9 to 5. That's a mouthful.
Yep.
When did you write it?
Just came out, meaning a few months ago. And, I wrote it to sort of tell my story. I realized there were a lot of Amazon books out there that told you kind of how to sell on Amazon, but they tended to be kind of technical in nature.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to write a book that not only would help people understand how to sell on Amazon, but also sort of tell it through the prism of my personal story.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I want to be different.
And because we haven't dove into that a bunch yet. I mean, from the patent perspective, I think we've exposed the idea. I think people now understand that there's an opportunity there. And I don't think there's a whole lot more to explain with respect to the finding products that are coming off patent, because once you've identified an opportunity, then it's just standard product research, which has been covered God knows how many times by how many other podcasts and how many other YouTube videos. So I don't really know that we need to cover that in detail here. But is there any other details about the process that we haven't talked about yet?
I think it's pretty straightforward from that perspective. One of the things that I actually tried to create a business that would make it easier for people to find these products. I actually never launched that business, but the reason I didn't is because I wanted to match Amazon products with expired patents. Turns out that's a little harder to do than I realized. So I never actually went forward with that business. But you can still do the matching by just sort of finding the general product and kind of doing it in a kind of a manual type way. I was just trying to figure out how to automate it.
So for someone who's listening to this who hasn't yet pulled the trigger on starting their own Amazon business, or maybe they have and their first product was a flop, which is oftentimes the case. It was for me. My first two products were flops, as a matter of fact. What advice would you give people to want to start selling on Amazon based upon your personal experience?
I think the most important piece of advice is, and it may sound simple, but it's just take a first step. I have a lot of friends who are very, very smart. They're wonderfully analytic, but they kind of talk themselves, because they're really, really smart, they talk themselves out of just about anything. And because Amazon there's so much data on Amazon, you can analyze a million ways why you shouldn't sell on Amazon. But I think the fact of the matter is it's a huge opportunity. But you just have to kind of get over the analysis paralysis problem. That was really my problem to start. Eventually, my first product was darts, and I just struggled, to figure out what to sell. But eventually, I just said, "Screw it! I'm just going to start. Darts is it." Even though I have no interest in the game and I've never played the game, I was just going to do it. And that turned out to be a really good product to start with because it worked out pretty well. But I think the best advice I would say is just to begin, and don't be afraid. The truth is, you don't have to spend that much money to start usually, and usually for most people, at least in my experience, it's like anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 you can really start with and really get a real product going.
Mm-hmm. The thing that I find amazing, and it's all to do with paradigms and how we look at things, is people won't bat an eye to spend $100,000 on a college education. But when it comes to starting their own business, be it on Amazon or on anywhere, they're looking for the perfect idea, the idea with no chance of failure whatsoever, which no such idea exists.
Right.
And
well, most of
what they fail to understand is that when your first idea is a flop, it's like going to school. You're still going to learn a whole bunch of stuff. And instead of spending $100,000 in 4 years of your life to get an undergrad, you're going to spend maybe $2,000 and a month or two or three, but you're going to get a massively valuable education, which will then help you to make a better decision on product number 2 and then product number 3. But people don't think that way. I want the perfect home run product from the get-go, or I'm just going to sit on my couch and analyze stuff forever.
Well, there's a line I sometimes use. They call it the curse of the overeducated. And the curse of the overeducated really is fear of failure. And for me, when I started doing this, I had started a number of different companies over the years, and the most recent one I did before I started selling on Amazon was a huge rocket ship until it crashed and burned to earth, right? And I had raised a ton of money from venture capitalists and such in order to do this particular company. And I was just kind of licking my wounds afterwards. And I was like, oh God, I really don't want to find a job. I really don't want to interview for a job. I really, really don't. And I also didn't want to go through the process of raising money again, which was also, challenging. So I was like, what can I do, to that wouldn't require me to go raise a ton of capital? And I went through a whole bunch of different ideas. And I often call that process of thinking of ideas, I call it the genius to idiot cycle, which means everything I think of course, is sheer genius because I thought of it, right? Until you realize it's just the dumbest idea ever. And you kind of go through this up and down process of good ideas and bad ideas. And eventually I sort of settled on the Amazon private label model because it just, it was low cost. It seems like a really interesting opportunity. And I just treated it as an experiment when I started. And again, darts was the first example of that. And I just, I just locked on that one. I found a supplier in China. I had it shipped from China directly to the Amazon warehouse, and off I was going. And I was very fortunate on that first one that it worked. I actually didn't even tell my wife that I was doing it in the beginning. I was like, some risks are just too big to take, but she's a very analytical person. Yeah. And so I was thinking, okay, let me gather a few months of data on this before I tell her what I'm doing. And if I have data, she'll find it to be okay.